Art is the essence of humanity and culture that should be celebrated throughout the world. One of them is through awards and recognitions in the artistic and or creative fields. Without them, we cannot give recognition of art throughout the world. We cannot give to the people the beauty and the emotional impacts of art, and we cannot give the deserving credit artists deserve to get. Now, before we move on to the arguments, let's criticize government side. 1. Yes, we believe that nomination through awards is through two ways. One is that it's created by executives, and second is through majorities vote. We want to criticize government points because they give so limited demographic examples for this nomination process. First, they give an example of where there is too many white dominations in America. And also, they give an example of Nicki Minaj and Katy Perry being banned in these awards because they have conflicts with the executives. One point is that these are only happening in America. This does not happen in other parts of the country or global scope. Because government giving examples that is very limited to the America's demographic does not mean this happens throughout all awards and recognitions in the global field. For example, in Indonesia itself, we have a lot of awards and recognitions in the artistic and or creative fields that is being done correctly and created fairly in those process. And so what we're trying to say is that the example being given by the government does not represent the art award itself, and that's why it does not really construct well. Second is that the government failed to recognize the fact that not all art are fully subjective. There is two parts of art in this case. One is that an art that has no metrics, that is very subjective, that government understand, and one that government miss is the fact that not all art subjective. If all arts are subjective, how can we say a CGI in a movie is convincing or not? How can we say if someone acting is really representing the character or not? Right? And so we believe that there is two parts of art. One is that there is very subjective, that we cannot really put metrics to decide whether they are good or bad, and then the other one is an art where we can actually put metrics whether to say they are good and bad. And so us as the opposition does not agree with the government, and we would like to support award and recognitions in the artistic and creative fields so that arts can be recognized throughout the world and artists can get the awards they deserve. Now, why art recognition is needed? Let's split this into two parts. One is the subjective art. How can we understand subjective art? Let us give you an example. Let's just say a painting. Painting have so many difference in their making. One is that painting in romanticism, or another one is painting in surrealism, another one is painting in abstract. In this case, the way we try to criticize, the way we try to see this painting is through the scope and lens the artist made. So there is no way for us to decide whether abstract painting is better than romanticism or vice versa. But in today's world, abstract art, or we can say uncommon art, is being recognized fairly. And why so? Yes, awards and recognition in those fields. So it does not make sense that the government said it kills art diversity because it's doing quite the opposite. Through art awards and recognition, these uncommon or subjective arts now can be seen through the right lenses because they are being introduced by the artist itself through these awards and recognition. For example, let's give you an example of Van Gogh. Van Gogh at his time is looked down because his art are deemed to be ugly because it did not follow the rules or metrics they have at the moment. But because of art awards and recognitions that is being evolving in our current world, now people can see this art through the Van Gogh lens himself. And now people's opinion on Van Gogh art is changing. Even people now call them a maestro. Because of art awards and recognition, we can understand artists' lenses and about how they see that art and what the art is actually intending. That's why we believe that art awards and recognition actually push diversity in arts because they give you the scope and lens that is needed to see art through the correct view. Now, let's look into the non-subjective arts. What we believe with really not so subjective art is that these arts still have metrics to decide whether they are good or bad. For example, like acting. Acting, we can decide if an acting is good or bad by understanding whether it is really representing the characters they are trying to give. For example, a good actor like Cillian Murphy that plays Thomas Shelby and Oppenheimer did a pretty well job because he represents a character that is so complex and he did it so well. There is a matrix there. Also, another example is like how we can judge a good or bad CGI. For Marvels and their Avengers deemed to have good CGI because they are quite convincing, but in the contrary, The Flash, the newly released film, is deemed to have bad CGI because they look like cartoons. So in this case, there is some sort of metrics to decide whether an art or an acting or performance is good or bad. And also we need to believe one thing, is that because art is liked by majorities does not mean it is a bad thing. Majorities may say what deemed as good art, because some art relates to the majorities better, it relates to the heart of the majorities and feelings of the majorities. Sometimes it brings out social problems that feel close to the majorities. This doesn't mean that people that got this art are being privileged. And so because we have an art that can be tracked down to the metrics to decide whether they are good and bad, this means that the artist that works for it gives a lot of hard work, energy, money, and time to make their art. And that's why they deserve the art awards and recognitions. For example, let's just say Taylor Swift or Queen. They deserve to get awarded because they spend a lot of time, energy, and money to produce their music. And actors or movies that have good cinematography or actors that is very convincing, they deserve that award and recognition because they work hard for that. And so we want art awards to exist in our world because it gives recognition to artists and it gives art to be seen in the correct lenses and scopes. Thank you.